Hey guys, welcome to my Geek Rant. So today I'm going to be reviewing Dark Disciple by Christie Golden, the new canon novel in the Star Wars mythos. There's a lot to talk about for this one. Both good and not necessarily bad, but different. I'm going to set up a warning right now. Oh, by the way, this is a non-spoiler review. This is a pre-release non-spoiler review, so don't worry about me spoiling anything in the series. But I will advise that all EU Legends canon fans should come into this very, very wary. There is a lot different with the story of Quinlan Vos, which I'll get into more later in my review, and even more so in my spoiler review. But I'm just gonna warn you from the get-go. You gotta brace yourself. But let's just get into the regular bits of the review. Basically, this book is about the Jedi being fed up with Dooku and his antics and the evils of this war, and they essentially decide to assassinate Dooku, which of course is completely outside the realms of Jedi morals, but they go through with it anyway, and I think that actually works for the overall theme of the Jedi having this war break them down, and I think that works very well in this story. But yes, they basically enlist Quinlan Vos to kill Dooku, and they want to do that with Asajj, or Obi-Wan suggests to Quinlan that he should, touch base with Asajj Ventress because she's the one who knows Dooku best in the universe. So we're introduced to Quinlan Vos, and he's doing what he does best. He's undercover, and he's using his special ability to touch objects and see what the history of that object is, and he's using that for his undercover work. So that was cool. When I first read it, I was like, okay, cool. They are keeping to the same principles of what Quinlan Vos was in Legends canon. Like, they're keeping his abilities and things like that, and which they did in the Clone Wars series, so that makes sense from the get-go. But they even have the fact that he's an undercover, Jedi agent, basically. So that was cool. We had that. We see like him in one of his missions, and then he gets a call from Obi-Wan and from the temple, and they have him come back. And I like that scene a lot, where he comes back to the temple, and it kind of feels like when Harry Potter comes back to Hogwarts, it's like his home, and like it's where he belongs, even though he has all these other things to do, all these missions to do, which he's okay with doing. He's a Jedi. He knows that's his role, but he does definitely enjoy the company of his brothers and sisters, because that's where he grew up. That's all he knows in this world, is this order and his family, essentially. So he gets there, he talks to the temple. They give him the role, and Obi-Wan even at one point says, you might have to flirt with Asajj Ventress. And then there's some things that the way Quinlan responds, this is the first hint of him not being in line with his previous plot line, or even his previous characterization in Legends, is he's a little bit uncomfortable with his sexuality, which is something he was not uncomfortable with in Legends canon. The book is written to make it seem like he is definitely this Jedi monk who's never had a woman in his life, and has no idea how to interact with women, which isn't really how Quinlan was in the previous canon. But I mean, that's whatever. Again, these are nitpicks. I'm gonna get into, again, I'm jumping the gun, but I'm going to get into that later on. But yes, in the temple there is a scene with Yoda and Mace, and I liked it a lot because it kind of highlighted to me why I feel Mace Windu is better suited to fight Sith than Yoda is, and just their ideologies playing off each other, I felt was really well done. And that's something I think this story does really well. It does character-based conflicts very, very well. Oh, so level 1313 makes its first canon appearance in the novel. It was alluded to in the Clone Wars series, but here we solid get 1313, and we actually get to meet the Bounty Hunters Guild, which is now canon, which is, Boba Fett, Bossk, and the other bounty hunters. So we go there and we figure out, like, more about Asajj and all that kind of stuff. Eventually the book goes on, and we have Ventress and Vos finding each other. At first they're at odds, but as time progresses, they get closer and closer, not just on their mission, but to each other. That's right, this is a pseudo romance novel as well. It's a pseudo novel between assassins and Jedi monks. I do like Christie Golden's writing style, especially the way she wrote Quinlan and Asajj, especially their little quibs together, their interplay between each other. I think that was done really well. not only did I believe in their dialogue most of the time, I actually felt it was kind of cute. You know, I felt they were kind of good for each other and they played off each other pretty well. Oh yeah, and then there's an aspect with Dooku. I felt like we don't often see the Separatist perspective and seeing how they idolize Dooku, you know, because the Separatists, they were separated from the Republic for good reason. There was, you know, all this corruption in the Republic, and they're essentially thinking themselves, they're basically the rebels of the Clone Wars, and they have this figurehead who they completely adore, which that little aspect I think I liked a lot. Okay, so midway through the book, as you know, Ventress and Asajj are getting closer to their mission, it becomes extremely apparent that the previous knowledge that we have about Quinlan Vos is gone. It's gone, and that hurt for me. Quinlan Vos is one of my favorite characters from Legends continuity, and to be honest, I actually stopped reading this book for about 3 days because there's a certain scene that just completely washes away a certain aspect of Vos's past that I just couldn't. I was like, I don't know what, like, I knew this was going to happen, and I knew that things were going to be overwritten, but I didn't think it was going to be this overt. Like, for instance, in the Kanan Marvel comic book, there's a point where Deepa Billaba is referenced to, and they reference to her past, but they don't overwrite it. They just say, hey, yeah, she was unstable before when she was in a coma, and then they just left it like that. And then this is completely, and it's not an issue of the writer. She had absolutely nothing to do with it. She just went based off of what she was told was the canon and everything. It's just the story group who I would think would try to get some of those elements in, especially when Dooku is a perfect through line for Quinlan Vos and Asajj Ventress, which I thought the novel was going to be about. I thought because there's this established past with Dooku and Quinlan, that would be his in with Asajj Ventress, and I thought that's why they chose Quinlan Vos, because of his shared past with Asajj. But that's not here at all. They have this completely different storyline for his past, which I think was needless, completely needless. And if they were gonna do such a different past, I would think just use another Jedi. There's 10,000 Jedi you can choose from in the galaxy, and you choose Quinlan Vos to just completely overwrite someone who I really kept dear to me, and that really sucked. That hurt, and it took me a while to separate my mind from the book, because the book itself is pretty good, but I really have this established thought about who Quinlan Vos is, and that includes his relationship to Master Thome. And then they have this other character, his name is Desh, which I thought they could have easily made it to Aayla Secura, because that's his apprentice, and that would have been a good person to like have on board. But again, I'll get into this in super detail in my spoiler review to explain what specific points I'm talking about and why they hurt me and why I think they were unnecessary, and just my overall outlook on that aspect of Quinlan. But let's get on to the rest of the review. I don't want this to be a complete rant about Quinlan Vos and Legends continuity. We gotta get over it. We gotta get over it if we want to continue reading and all that kind of stuff. But it still hurts, and I think it's unnecessary. But I'm talking too much. All right, let's go. Continue. Okay, wait, hold on. I lied. One more thing. I actually felt the main thing that it wasn't so much that it hurt me, but just in terms of a storyline aspect. I actually, so Quinlan, of course, you know, he's kind of a dark character, and they keep that. So like, here's the thing. Quinlan's character is still there. Like, his darkness and his light, you know, aspect that he is dealing with, that's still there. They just did a whole different plot line, which I felt was less interesting. Before, he's like, you know, this double agent who doesn't really know if he's really a double agent or if he's dark side for real, or if he's on the light side and he's just pretending. It's this whole thing, and it's all built up from an internal struggle. Here in the story, there's a specific scene where the dark side is sort of, I mean, it's his choice ultimately, but the dark side is sort of manipulated into him, and it's forced upon him. And I mean, there's some other things going on that I thought was interesting. Typically, I mean, notably his relationship with Asajj Ventress. But still, I prefer the original continuities aspect of his struggle between light and dark that I didn't prefer in this book. But that's it. That's all I'm gonna say. Let's talk about the rest of the book. While I do prefer the previous storyline of Quinlan Vos, I will say that this book, if you don't even know who Quinlan Vos is from before, or you just don't care about what he had before, this book is actually very compelling, and it's a very, very good story, and it's a very good story of character in particular. There was even a point with Obi-Wan that I thought was really well done. I always felt that Obi-Wan has played mediator between the Jedi Council and a lot of other factions. The most notable mirror image I had of that in this book was Obi-Wan's relationship with Anakin in episode 3 and Obi-Wan's relationship with Quinlan Vos. I always thought that Obi-Wan was kind of sort of appeasing to the Jedi Order and appeasing to the Jedi Council specifically, to the point where he kind of had to sacrifice his relationships with his, with his friends, Anakin and Quinlan. And I felt like that was highlighted here. There's a scene, you guys all remember it, when Obi-Wan is asking Anakin to basically betray Sidious, to spy on Sidious, and Anakin in turn feels betrayed by Obi-Wan. That's like one of the stepping stones for him feeling betrayed by the Jedi Order, by Obi-Wan. And Obi-Wan essentially says, well, the council is asking you, and because Anakin asks, like, why are you asking this of me? He's like, I'm not, it's really the council, they're kind of making me. And then that sucks, because like basically at that point Obi-Wan's saying, I'm essentially choosing the Jedi Order and the council over you. And that hurts a lot. And that's what he kind of does with Quinlan Vos as well in this, when he's basically having him prod into Asajj Ventress, and Quinlan doesn't really want to do that because as he's getting closer romantically to Asajj Ventress, he's starting to care for her more. And essentially what he needs to do is he needs to bring her back into the dark side when she's actually been recuperating from that. She's actually gotten herself away from that, and his task is to get her to get back into it so she can teach it to him so that they can fight Dooku. And so Obi-Wan, during his missions, he's like, hey, what's going on? Like, hurry up, get her moving. And like, Quinlan for a bit's like, I don't want to do that. And again, I think that was a good character moment, because it's always interesting, the mission needs to be done, but then there's your own morals, and then there's your friendships, and I think that was really played into very well. And there are some unexpected sources from which to get some very good lessons, and one of those lessons comes from where we would not expect it. It comes from Asajj Ventress. And I want to say that Asajj Ventress in this novel is extremely interesting. She's probably my favorite aspect of this book, and my favorite character of this book. When we come into her, she is lost. She's this bounty hunter. She's just bouncing after bounty, just making all this money. But she really has nowhere to go. She's been abandoned by Dooku. She's been abandoned by the Sith. She can't go to the Jedi. They actually want her not dead, but they want her, imprisoned. And there's a scene in the beginning where she sees a family. She sees a mother, father, and their daughter or child, I forget. And she reflects on that. And I think she's reflecting on that because ultimately she wants that. She wants to have a family deep down, because she's also lost all of her Night Sisters, who were her only family after she was, disbanded from the Sith. She comes back to her Night Sisters, and then they're all just wiped away by Dooku and Grievous, and it's just like she has nowhere to go. So that also makes her relationship with Quinlan pretty, profound, because that she needs something. She needs someone, and she doesn't even realize it, but she needs someone. Quinlan needs someone, and when they find each other and have to go through what they have to go through, it's kind of cool and it's nice. And I liked how their interaction happened. I liked how their relationship progressed. I didn't really feel like it was forced. I feel like it was pretty natural. There were some, some cheesy lines in there that I thought were but it was okay. She really does teach Quinlan light and dark, because she knows both. She was trained by Kyneric as a Jedi, and then she was trained as Dooku, as Dooku's apprentice. And she knows both worlds, and she knows how to prod the dark side out of Quinlan Vos, and she knows how to teach him to keep it at bay. But of course, there's conflict that arises from that. There's conflict that arises from their interaction with Dooku, which I think was interesting. And there's a lot. The character pieces in this are very rich to me, and I think that that's the strongest aspect of this novel, barring the whole legend stuff. I think that the author knows very well how to create tension and character conflict and motivation, and how people's motivations interact with each other. And there's a lot of aspect about trust in this as well. There's a huge aspect of trust, actually. Let me correct that, in this novel, and as a huge theme of this. Trust between the Jedi Order and their members, trust between a relationship between two people, and trust in yourself, you know, just trust in your internal being and being true to yourself or being true to other people. I think that's a huge part of this novel, and I think that was very compelling. I will say at the end of this novel, the third act, I would say, it starts to fall apart for me just a little bit. I felt like some of the there's a big conflict that needs to be resolved, of course. I mean, that's how a book goes, and I felt like the way it got there was a little clunky. There was like a few specific missions that happened that I wasn't really fully behind, because I wasn't really sure what was going on in terms of certain characters' head and motivations, and I wasn't sure what to make of it. And also, I was still getting over the fact with the whole legend stuff, and at that point, like in the second half of the book, was sort of sullied for me, but that's okay. But yeah, no, it picks up again, and I think that it ends very well. I think the ending of it was very well. The message that was presented at the end of this novel, I think, was very good for not only just us, the readers, but for the Jedi Order itself, which we see that they ultimately fell anyway, come episode 3, which I think I might want to make a geek rant for, probably specifically for Mace Windu, and how the Jedi have been broken down by this war and their need for avenging basically the galaxy, which is not the Jedi way. But yeah, overall, I think this book was pretty good. I would give it a rating of 3.5 stars. So that's just one step above one solid read. I think it would be a reread. I think at some point in my life, I will read this book again. And I think once I get over it and myself, I can enjoy it fully rather than, you know, having the second half of it bleh for me. But yeah, I like it a lot. I think there's a lot of rich stuff in terms of character here. I think it's got a pretty good plot line, pretty good story. I like seeing Dooku in it. I like seeing the interaction with the Jedi Council and all of that stuff. So yeah, that's my rating for it. I will see you guys on my spoiler review, which I'm going to go in super detail about. Sorry if I ranted there in the middle. I mean, well, I probably should. I mean, that's the name of the show. But yes, of course, I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace, love, and may the Force be with you. Always. They nearly match each other physically. Boba being trained for bounty hunting his whole life. Shepard being trained as an Alliance soldier. Between the PS2 and the PS3, and it was like a big breakthrough because there was like destructible stuff that you can do and stuff like that. It's just kind of cool like that. Like that tree totally just got sliced.